Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome. We have seen in the previous class the verse 24, chapter 13. We are almost done with it. He who knows thus Purusha and Prakriti, and along with the gunas and the elements that unfold from Prakriti, the one who knows these two principles, Purusha and Prakriti, spirit and matter, consciousness and matter and mind, one who knows those two principles is self-realized and is not going to be reborn according to the scriptures. Howsoever a lifestyle the person lives, it's not really that important. The importance is the desire, the earnestness, the pull of the mind towards its true self, and the pull from the self, pulling the mind to its source, something on those lines. So, but knowledge must be present, because as even Ramana Maharaj used to say, by knowledge and knowledge alone, the self can be realized. Some other times he would say, tell me a moment that the self is not realized, is not really shining. So, but in any case, the intellect must be fully satisfied, and then following the sadhanas, we come to nididhyasana, in which we are invited to meditate until this aham brahmasmi knowledge becomes 100% conviction in regards to one's real nature. 100% conviction, no doubt. And then one may begin living from that certainty, and experience life from a different angle. So we need to know both. We need to keep it in mind. We need to be able to not mix up or confuse, that's it? Not to confuse one with the other. And once we stop those confusions somehow, again, the confusion, it happens in the intellect and has to be removed in the intellect by the very intellect doing the inquiry. So this discrimination is not physical, as we know. It's cognitive, again, pointing to the intellect. Okay. We don't need to change our lifestyle. So in India, we see a lot of people living according to the Ananda as householders, wives, self-realized, people on the street. It's not very uncommon in India to find self-realized people, regardless of their lifestyle. The person who knows that the body-mind complex is Prakriti, and the person also knowing that Purusha is the only reality, that very knowledge, that very vision, wisdom, once it is 100% sure, certain, firm, hard, and it releases the person from suffering, from samsara, which can be seen as cycles of life, death, and rebirth. When the person dies, the mind, which is relatively eternal, it leaves the physical body, the body perishes, the mind leaves the body, and it remains intact, but without an instrument to keep experiencing duality by which it grows in terms it grows in terms of wisdom. No? Life is but an opportunity to experience this duality, extracting wisdom from dual experiences. From the dualistic experience, we may get the ultimate knowledge that everything is of the nature of one without a second. There is not really duality. There is only consciousness reflecting this apparent duality. The soul is supposedly going after another body. We have seen this as well. Due to its hardwired impression, they want continuity of experiences. And the tragedy is that very rarely a soul wants to come back to finish this process. He wants to come back to extract this knowledge to a point of full satisfaction, let's say. So most people, they want to come back because they want to still try to enjoy sensory pleasures. Now, very rarely somebody is going to leave the body and say, no, I want to come back because I want to complete my journey, my spiritual journey. I believe. The Jnana is the one who knows that the true nature of the I is that which is consciousness beyond birth and death. Therefore, this shift of sense of identification allows the Jnana to feel that there is no question of rebirth. Even if the mind receives another birth, still I know that I am the birthless, deathless consciousness. So that may be the case of some births, some individuals that are born and they are so evolved spiritually. They may know already. I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, but yet Ishwara decides that he needs to get another round, and then the individual comes, and very soon it exposes. Now it somehow it express this deep wisdom, spiritual wisdom, these spiritual tendencies that very soon, you know, returns into self recognition and further purification. Verse 25, some seekers see the self in the mind with the mind through meditation. Some others see through Jnana-yoga. Some others see through Kama yoga. So he is presenting different kind of sadhanas. So he begins talking about meditation. So it is the mind that has to search for the true nature of the seeker, the true nature of reality, the true nature of God, and it has to be done by the mind, by the intellect. Of course, the intellect has to be very subtle, very purified, because he's trying to gain a knowledge of something which is the most subtle. So the mind has to develop subtlety, and it gains subtlety by doing Kama yoga and Upasana, and then farther down the road, Shravana and Manana. So we know the recipe, the Vedantic recipe, sometimes is presented as simply two levels of Kama yoga, two levels of Upasana. So Sakama Kama yoga, Niskama Kama yoga, and then Upasana. using a deity, with name, form, and attributes, and then we go into Upasana using Ishvara as the totality of all name, forms, and attributes. Sometimes we structure the teachings here and there, depending on the context, structure the teachings with these five sadhanas, two levels of Karma Yoga, two levels of Upasana, and then Jnana Yoga. But here, Swami is unfolding this based on the structure of this 5, 6 verse before we conclude this chapter, presenting it differently just by Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana. So we know very well which are the sadhanas suggested by Vedanta. But the intriguing thing is that here it says like some seekers see the self through meditation. It means to say that they get the knowledge just by doing meditation, by not really going through the scriptural knowledge by Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Maybe that's what he's saying. So he's presenting here two levels or two different paths, through meditation is the search for the I. What is this I? Yeah? What is this mind? What is the nature of this mind? So you go trying to find the self by investigating the nature of the mind. So you want the mind to be very quiet, to inquire into its nature as consciousness. So most meditators do that without have been in contact with the teachings of the Upanishads. And then some others are going to be in contact with the teachings, the Jnana Yoga of the Upanishads. And they are going to try to understand the logic that proves that the true nature of the I is God, which is consciousness, which is the supreme self, the supreme being. So we want to go through Jnana Yoga, and then we need to follow the logic. We're going to make a logic analysis following these teachings, which are going to reveal to the logical intellect that its nature, its true identity is not the body, and it's not the mind, it's not the intellect, but it is that beyond or before all of that. So Jnana Yoga, the teachings that are going to establish the true nature of the I as limitless, free, independent consciousness. And some others are going to see the self through Karma Yoga. As we know, Karma Yoga is a yoga of preparedness, but generally speaking, it does not produce self-knowledge. So it appears by the structure of this verse that he's present true levels of sadhanas, of paths, spiritual paths, which is common, very often present in some other variations of schools of Vedanta. Ramakrishna Foundation and so on, and Vivekananda, they present more or less on those terms. The paths of action, Karma Yoga, the paths of meditation, the paths of devotion as an independent path, and the paths of self-inquiry, and so on. But here we need to get this verse and structure it in a way that we understand that, generally speaking, unless somebody is highly developed individual, he's going to begin helping or serving. Devotion has to be there in any case, if he's doing Karma Yoga with devotion to the Lord, he may get self-recognition, self-knowledge without ever listening to any of the teachings of the Upanishads. You understand? Devotion is that the individual is seeing God everywhere, and then out of the blue, he gets what is commonly known as God realization. He realized the nature of God, you know, and then the person is satisfied and happy and wants to serve the Lord. You know? So meditation is another way to go. But unless the meditation is structured around the final declarations, Upanishadic declarations of the true nature of the mind, meditation more often than not remains an exercise within duality, you know. I and the mind, I and my disturbed mind, I and my silent mind, you know? I and the bliss I experience with a silent mind. So still remains a little bit like misleading the meditator to imagine that the self is going to be found in a state of deep meditation, which is not completely wrong because it's much easier to realize the self when the mind is still. There is a proverb that says, "Be still and know," if we remember. uh, So if the mind is very quiet, this is very interesting because some people will say, keep quiet, like Ramana used to say, keep quiet, be still, without asking, telling anything, giving any hint of what's going to happen, just be still, keep quiet. But we see a quiet mind, there is a certain reflection of consciousness that may reveal itself as one's very self and God's very nature. And my first guru used to present this meditation as the most important. He used to refer here and there as be the watcher on the hill, just watch everything. Watch everything. And as you watch everything, the mind is going to become quiet. And then in that silent mind, you stay there for some time. And then he used to literally say the mind is going to turn upon itself and it's going to discover its true nature. You know? So meditation, it may bring the person to the point in which the person finds this beautiful reflection, this source of peace and satisfaction and bliss. And that can be also misleading because person may take that to be its final goal, you know. That is the self, and that is the literal definition of yoga is reconnecting with God. And then you want to find God, but not being in contact with the teaching of the Upanishads, a person believes that God is a certain mental state, not the very nature of the meditator. So it's a little bit like that, you know, a lot of teachers, a lot of schools, different suggestions and proposals. And I have never seen anything more well structured and beautifully, intelligently present as the Vedanta teachings, because presents all the sadhanas as means which that will take the individual to the final nididhyasana, which is, you know already that you are Brahman, you are limitless consciousness, but now you need to realize it beyond the intellect who has a trust, confidence, shraddha. It has faith in what the scriptures are saying. Now that you have those certainty, that confidence, that trust, you go to do nididhyasana. So that is going to help the knowledge to be direct knowledge or fully internalized, which is another subject. So, from this next 5, 10, 10, 11 verse, we're going to deal with knowledge, Yanan, and the fruits of self-knowledge, a very juice kind of a topic. The ultimate goal of all spiritual sadhanas is self-knowledge. We should know that. It's not an experience of peace, love, expansion, or interdimensions or higher dimensions. There's nothing about these esoteric, mystical goals if one has really understood Vedanta. So let there not be any doubt about that. The ultimate goal of all spiritual paths is self-knowledge. It's not an experience, even though self-knowledge is going to impact the way the individual experience the world and the way it experiences the body-mind-sense complex. Therefore, the ultimate goal is Atmani, Atmana, and da da da. And here he made it complex with all these Sanskrit words. The all-pervade self is available within the mind, the body-mind-sense complex. It shines as Aham. As we know, the Aham, invariably, it somehow defines itself as the body and suffers the body-mind's limitation, mortality being the most cruel. So, therefore, the way to go is to discover God within, discover the Atma within. Because if you want to understand and get to know the Atma somewhere out there in the books, or someone out there on a deity or a concept of Vishwara, Vishvarupa, Ishwara, and so on, you are still in duality. There is still you and God, you and the self. But the self is one without a second. So those superimpositions need to be seen through until we know for sure that the only way to get this direct knowledge is to realize God's nature within ourselves as the nature of the I, the nature of the mind, the intellect. The seeker has to recognize the Atma in its own instrument. And with what instrument should a person gain knowledge? It's not the five sense, it's not any of those instruments. The instrument is one, as we know, and it's the only one, it's buddhi, the intellect. Every knowledge is to be acquired through this buddhi instrument, not the five sense. The buddhi is something very, very subtle. The mind is going to somehow integrate. Mind is a beautiful integrator because it's going to integrate our interaction through the five sense. Sometimes we are dealing with three sense instruments and they integrate in one single experience. But then the Buddha is going to try to understand that contact, are going to try to say, so what's going on here? How can I know if this is an experience that can provide me with more security and peace and satisfaction? So how can I go about, getting wisdom from my experience? So the Buddha is a very complex kind of instrument. It's the highest. It gets the experience provided by the integration of the mind, and then is going to analyze, verify, look back into the files of the memory and try to discriminate, discern, and make certain decisions. So the Buddha is our highest instrument. The only one where we can get knowledge, and self-knowledge is a form of knowledge. The difference between self-knowledge and any and all other knowledge, which are possible only in the Buddha, through the Buddha, is that self-knowledge is the only knowledge that does not happen in duality. All our knowledge are happening in duality. And idam, the word I and Jagata. Aham and Jagat. Right? I and the life around me. And then I want to get knowledge. We see this duality, knower and object of knowledge, experiencer, object of experience. So all other knowledge is a dualistic form of knowledge. It happens within duality. And self-knowledge, although it happens in the intellect, it is a non-dual knowledge. And the mind is used to inquire or try to learn, come to certain conclusions in the field of duality. So to get the knowledge of that, which is the very nature of the one doing the inquiry, doing the investigation, is something that comes with a certain collapse of these tendencies to see things from a perspective of duality, and then the mind freezes for a moment, and then you realize what I'm looking is something that is nowhere out there, not in the finest possible blissful experience. I'm looking for myself, my true nature. Is the most simple thing, as we hear over and over again from different people. So it is a knowledge to be gained in the intellect, but it is not an intellectual knowledge, commonly speak, because it's not a knowledge in respect to the phenomenal objects of the world. And the Buddha must be refined, prepared, qualified, purified, and it needs to go about the support of Guru, Shastra, Upadesa. So the best way to go about preparing the Buddhi, going through those different levels of Karma Yoga and then Upasana, and then Shravana and Manana, is to get into the program, as Ramji used to say. The Vedantic program is totally supported by Guru, Shastra, Upadesha. A refined and Guru, Shastra, Upadesha support Buddhi has to gain the knowledge, is fit to gain self-knowledge. Shankaracharya uses another expression, with the help of the mind, which is supported by Guru, Shastra, Upadesha. So we have 2 or 3 elements here. We have the inquirer, and with the help of one mind, and with the help supported by the package, Guru, Scripture, one is fit to get self-knowledge. But the mind must be prepared. With that mind, one is going to get Atmayana. And if this Atmayana is the culmination, the only sadhana, the question is how many preparatory stages are there for coming to this climax. So now we're going to go into the different sadhanas as suggested by Vedanta. Here it is presented as 5-fold stages. Through these 5 stages, we come to Nididhyasana. In each stage, we will remove some obstacles for self-knowledge. This is important. Each one of these stages, we are removing some obstacles for self-knowledge. from the more the more dense, the more gross, until the very subtle obstacles. The mind, the ego, is the obstacle. Its sense of I am the doer, I'm the enjoyer, I'm the one thinking and making it happen, and so on. So, and the mind, as it becomes more subtle, it's going to face more subtle obstacles. Therefore, we have different sadhanas to address those different levels of obstacles. They are referred as pratibandha nivritti. So these 5 stages, and what are the obstacles to be removed? Swami says that we have dealt it in the 12th chapter and also in some other chapters and contexts. I'm not going to elaborate again, but I don't believe Swamiji, he is going to elaborate, I'm sure. The first stage is called Kama Yoga, where the mental impurities are going to be removed. In Sanskrit, it's called Mala Nivritti. Mala means impurities or dirt. What are these impurities? Raga, Dvesha, Kama, Krodha, all the emotional problems of the mind. The mind is very emotional. Every thought has an emotional feel to it. The mind in the beginning has all these impurities. These impurities, they manifest as what? Attraction, repulsion, or desires and fears. And then a lot of different emotional disturbance, such as kama, krodha, desires, fears, and then all kinds of frustrations, anger, irritation, competition, and then feeling small, depression in some case. And then finally enough, we have moha, which is a mind that somehow has lost its ability to discriminate, discern. So the list is very long of those emotional problems experienced by the mind. And how is Kama Yoga going to take care of that? The Kama Yoga is going to explain to the individual that the individual has no control over the results of his or her actions. So most of these mental disturbance comes from this delusion that life should be my way, things should be my way. And then the mind is going to experience frustration, irritation, anger, depression, and a long list of different kinds of emotional pain. So Kama Yoga is the first step to remove these more gross, dense impurities of the mind. They manifest as emotional disturbance. The next sadhana is called upasana, or meditation upon a symbol of the Lord. At the beginning, the Lord with attributes or glories. So the next, this sadhana of meditation is going to remove the next kind of obstacle. These obstacles are said to be vikshepa, otherwise called bahirmukhitatvam. The mind does not have one pointedness, it's just jumping. It is restless. It is disturbed. This is a different kind of disturbance. It's not as bad as the emotional disturbance, let's say. The emotional disturbance is very, very serious, but the lack of focus, of one-pointedness, makes the mind restless, extroverted, projecting happiness somewhere out there, and this, maybe that, and then, no, when I'm going to meditate, and then the mind comes up suggesting many other things rather than meditate. So this restlessness of the mind is another sort of impurity. Okay. It does not hurt as much as emotional pain, but it can be very painful if you deny distraction to a restless mind. So, if you want to get a restless mind and force the mind to meditate, and then it may be a painful experience because the mind is going to try to get moving, you know, and you say, no, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. It's a huge battle. And in the beginning, it can be a torture for the meditator trying to meditate. I know it's frustrating. So this extrovertedness of the mind is the second obstacle. Upasana helps us in bring the mind to focus. It integrates the mind as well. It harmonizes the mind. It gives the focus power and the extrovertedness. And also, he does not mention here, they expand the mind as well, so that slowly learns to focus on things that are less tangible and then more subtle. And then the mind start entering the realm of subtleties. The self is the most subtle. You need to go to train the mind to be focused on some symbols of the Lord, which are more subtle. The outgoing mind is withdrawing. Therefore, the second sadhana is upasana. It removes vikshepa, extrovertedness. The third stage of the mind is called, the third stage of sadhana is called shravana. Now we have the mind who has somehow removed the first obstacles, which were a lot of emotional disturbance. And then later on, it got the mind to be purified from excessive thoughts, ideas and notions, visiting the mind and inviting the mind to go out, engage on those yakitiats. So the third step is a different one. So the mind is more purified, cleaner. We're going to start listening to the teachings of Vedanta under the guidance of a guru, competent guru, and then you're going to listen to the teachings, which will help the elimination of what? The most fundamental but more subtle impurity, which is self-ignorance. Okay, now you are really come to the root of the problem, the human problem. All of that is based on self-ignorance. If you get somebody suffering emotionally, suffering mentally, and tell him, okay, let's skip those two levels, let's go into manana, listening to the teachings of the Upanishads from a competent teacher. So what happens? Oh, you're going to remove your self-ignorance. No, the mind is not prepared for Shravana. The mind is suffering from emotional disturbance and mental disturbance. The mind who is suffering from lack of one-pointedness, focus. The mind who was lacking, the purity, emotional purity to understand these teachings is a mind that cannot jump into Shravana like that. And the tragedy is that Vedanta generally has been present to people all over the planet, people who did not go through Kama Yoga and Upasana. And people go into the delusion of listening to it, getting a certain superficial intellectual understanding, and then they go around declaring Aham Brahmasmi. This is another sort of delusion. So Vedanta presents a system by which the mind is going to prep itself to a good Shravana. So the purification has gone through Kamana, Mala, Upasananema Vritti, and then Shravanena Anyana, self-ignorance of Vrittis, uh, Nivrittis. So we have a clear picture here why Vedanta is quite a system, you know. The fourth stage of sadhana is called manana. So Shravana, you addressing the root cause of humans' problems and disturbances, which is self-ignorance. And then you listen, you listen, you listen, and then you cannot take everything on blind faith. You need to make sure that you have your intellect is satisfied with the entire body of knowledge presented through this Shravana. So this fourth stage is manana. I'm checking if my intellect is really convinced and satisfied with the exposition. The intellect must be satisfied because only then self-knowledge may be accepted and internalized and owned, so to speak. The intellect cannot just in a hurry say, no, it's okay, I did not understand this, I'm not sure about that. This is vague to me, this is doubtful, this is abstract, but it's okay. But the overall I understood a little bit, so let's just push it under the carpet. No. Manana is the stage in which the intellect must be fully satisfied so that it can be convinced. This conviction is important. It's not yet direct self-knowledge, but is indirect self-knowledge. I understood the teachings, I have no doubt. I understood that there is only consciousness, the nature of God is consciousness, and there's the very nature of the human jiva. And now I have doubtless self-knowledge. Better said, a doubtless indirect self-knowledge. As long as there are doubts, there will be reservations. Yes, but, you know, the famous but. Those buts are the obstacles. And then Swami says something which is a nice sentence. A doubtful self-knowledge is as good as self-ignorance. So first stage is to get a doubtless self-knowledge. And manana is an effort we do to find questions and doubts and look for the answers. The answers, they reveal themselves in any case through our mananas without even having to address or reach the guru. The guru is always available. But the magic is that when the intellect starts really looking for doubts and those kind of reservations or abstractions, it finds some, okay? And then it sits on it for a little bit, and then the teachings are going to dissolve those doubts within the intellect of the very person. I'm sure you guys have this experience as well. You work on some doubts, and when you see, you know, it's dissolved. But the guru is always there for those more persistent obstacles, doubts. You can solve those doubts either by oneself, doing one's own self-inquiry, or with the help of a guru. Therefore, the fourth stage is manana, by which we remove this kind of impurity, doubt, the intellectual obstacles, lack of certainty and conviction. Converging this self-knowledge into doubtless self-knowledge is this stage we get through manana. And then comes the the fifth and the last stage, which is called Nididhyasana, which is meant to remove habitual reaction. It is so beautifully put. I got the knowledge, and I have no doubt that the I is of the nature of limitless, infinite, Satchitananda Brahman. Everything is this conscious existence. I have no doubt about that. But I have a large load of vasana sitting in my causal body or unconscious mind that comes to the surface again and again, challenging this conviction of self-knowledge and pulling me back to say, forget about that. You are of the nature of Prakriti. You are the body-mind. Therefore, repeat with me, aham, body-mind as me. So the mind is going to be coming with this old habit, which it takes time to be uprooted. Huh? And we are going to be challenged over and over again through our interaction with life. In Nididhyasana, because the interaction is going to bring to the surface this dichotomy. I think dichotomy, I think is the word, between what I know and the way I'm living my life. There is a contradiction there. So I need to come to a point by which I have a Vedantic vasana well established in my causal body, so that the other vasanas, they were just uh, dispersed or simply, dismissed or simply dissolved. You have light, light is going to dispel ignorance, darkness. So these vasanas, thought, feelings, emotions, tendencies to see yourself in harmony with the true nature of God, the true nature of what you are, is going to represent the light, simply canceling those other vasanas, which are symbolized as darkness. We have to watch then our regular unhealth or jnani responses of life until I develop vasanas. When I'm talking about habit here is vasanas, we need to not only get the knowledge on our conscious mind, but it has to be deposited, so to speak, in the unconscious mind, in the causal body. So we need to develop those vasanas, aham brahmasmi vasanas, so that it reflects through my interaction with life. So I'm not reacting now from aham body mind as me, but I have already enough vasanas based on aham brahmasmi, so that I begin interact with life from that background. Most of our emotion, our response comes from the causal body, so subconscious mind. That is what a knowledge which was well internalized, integrated in the causal body, so that it works for us 24/7, because our response comes from them. We have to develop a new habit, a new body of vasanas. And habit is developed in time. And habit will be destroyed in time as well. So we have developed all these habits around aham body mind as me over many births. And now we want to have this habit, these vasanas destroyed the moment that I get a good self-knowledge established in my conscious mind. So, but I have all these impressions in my subconscious mind. The same way that it was developed over many process of incarnation, now we need to be patient until these vasanas are destroyed in time. And it does not take effort, because the self-knowledge right from the beginning begins eroding the sense of being the authorship, the doership, and everything. You don't need, oh, I need to do this now. No, I have to do this. No, you understood that this is an organic process that often I call the Ishwara system, and then things are happening. I have harmonized my life with the nature of reality through with the help of the scriptures. And now whatsoever residual ignorances, old bad habits are there, they are going to go in time, you know. The deliberate invocation of the Vedanta so that I can get rid of unvedantic vasanas. So then we go. Again, you got self-knowledge. Okay, your life is not harmonized with what you know. Okay, it's not unnatural. But now you need to be patient and stay with the Guru, Shastra, Upadesa. You have to stay with Vedanta. You don't need to do that with a sense of doership. You just know, yes, Lord, I know I have these old vasanas, these old reactions, old habits, and I'm still here. I don't think, I think no longer that I did it and now I have to undo it. No, I just trust. This is what it is. We are all organic biological computers programmed by vasanas. And now I have developed these new vasanas. And in time, I know that this purification is going to grow and grow and grow so that we can enjoy the fruits of self-knowledge. The fruits of self-knowledge is in the purification, is in the elimination of these old habits based on how body, mind as me and my desires and fears. I will be staying with the teaching so that these unvedantic habits will surely go in due time. Disturbing reactions is an unvedantic reaction. Fear, desires, anxiety, self-pity, insecurity, competition, irritation, anxiety, everything is a sign of Aham Brahmasmi vasanas is still manifesting my conscious mind, producing such reactions. This vasana nivritti or viparita bhavana nivritti is the fifth and final stage we call nididhyasana. No? Is the purification that goes on once the self-knowledge is doubtless. So it's very, very subtle, this topic, because we say that self-knowledge is made out of knowledge and knowledge alone, and loss takes place in the intellect. The intellect has its knowledge. I am of the nature of consciousness, the only reality. Everything, the I is of the nature of consciousness. But somehow I'm still reacting to life in a way as if betraying this knowledge. It happened to me so clearly. Now, Sylvia may remember I used to verbalize it by saying, I know already after self-recognition. Before that, I know that I am consciousness, everything is consciousness, I'm not the mind. But through my interactions, there are moments that I still respond, react to life as if I'm betraying my knowledge. I used to verbalize as if I would be betraying this, my higher self, this truth. Okay? So such is the power of vasanas. Yeah? And then we have a clear self-knowledge, direct to some extent, but vasanas are still there. And then we need to stay with it so that these vasanas, they dissolve. This is a subtle topic because self-knowledge has the power to to purify one's vasanas very, very extensively. The direct, you know, recognition has the power to purify our body of vasanas big time. But not all the vasanas, of course. Those more hardwired would will require patience, trust, and staying with it. This is, in the language of Swamiji, is the assimilation and internalization, so that this knowledge, as I often say, grows roots in the causal body. We see the truth, the tree by its fruits. So we see self-knowledge by the way one lives one's life and interacts with life, not externally, what one dress, what one does as profession or do not do anything, but by the way the person, experience life. It's very subtle. Most people see no difference between a well-established yoni and any other person. So everybody has to go through all these 5 stages. They are not optional. They are compulsory according to Vedanta, but there are exceptions to the rule always. Depend on our stage of development. We may need to begin from step number 1, or maybe step number 2, or step number 3. So it does not matter. So it's difficult to find someone who is taking the first step. Much more difficult to find someone who can begin by the second step. More readily, someone who can begin by the third or fourth step. Even more rare, someone who can begin with the fifth step. Hear the knowledge, contemplate a little bit, and then fully assimilated, integrated. So the soul must be very advanced to skip those steps. If a person dies without having completed this journey, a person who has began this process, don't worry, nothing's lost. The next birth, the journey is going to be easier, and the person is going to find better, more more circumstances which are more conducive circumstances. It's like going from a school to another. The child takes the certificate from the previous school so that it can enter on that stage in the next new school. A person should start from Karma Yoga and then Upasana, or could start direct by Shravana. It's more safe to go through the 5 stages, all the 5 paths. Okay. But there are some spiritual genius or prodigies. They are extraordinary and very rare. The spiritual prodigies means the one who has gone through the previous stages in previous births. So there's no way around it. No, I don't need it because Ramana Maharaj did not need to go through anything. He did not even study scriptures before he became enlightened. So it's very simple for us to understand that everybody is born with uh, different types of purities/impurities, Some people are born with a mind that is almost already destroyed, incapable of further development. Some people come with the mind which is so refined and pure that one may wonder that God is not fair. But according to our scriptures, this is a well intelligent designed order based on meritocracy. So the soul, through its efforts, are going to gain a better birth. There's no need for some case of any guru in the scripture. But when we look at people such as these geniuses, we should not say, oh, me too, I am an exception to the rule. It's very rare, but the ego likes to resist the first stage and resist even more the guru. I don't need a guru. And they develop these wonderful ideas of how great and spiritually advanced the ego is. Therefore, some seekers start from Kama Yoga because they have strong emotional raga and diversions operating. So they need to go to Kama Yoga. So if you are moved by a lot of likes and dislikes, a lot of desires and aversions, creating mental, emotional disturbance all the time, you need to go through Kama Yoga, understanding, throughout a system, understanding that one has no control. And the more we try to control, the worse it becomes, because I'm going to experience more and more frustration, anger, irritation, depression, rage, and so on. And that is going to compromise the way I can interact with life, offering my response. And I'm going to produce more and more papan. And more papan coming my way, more I'm going to suffer because I'm still holding on to I want things my way. So a person who has that kind of impurity must begin with Kama Yoga, strong raga devotion, strong krodha and moha and so on. Some other people start from the second and so on. Okay, we carry on tomorrow, right? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate Om Shanti 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 Om Vishwara Namaste.
Thank you, Erlinda.
We meet tomorrow. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, Orlando. See you tomorrow.